I'm trying. Here we go. I misspoke for those people who are intensely hungry. Rajan has something else to say. And another panel, I believe.
Yeah, it's not time for lunch. We have two fascinating panels coming up, so please just change your digestive and mental brain, or however it works, to not think about lunch right now, because this next session is about positive developments with a whole industry approach. We're talking collaboration, innovation, and technology. Because this is a solutions-focused forum, we like to think. It's not just a talking shop. We're trying to find practical answers. And I think this next session is all about that. We're talking about inventive ways in which tapping into collaboration, innovation, and technology can push the collective drive towards greater sustainability. And by the way, sustainability, again, is not just in its narrowest sense. It's not just about climate change and tackling that, but also the community, social, and economic sustainability too. Just on that climate change question though, and because we're talking about solutions, one interesting estimate that I found out recently is that 35% of carbon emission reductions which will be needed by 2050 will need to be achieved by tech that has not been invented yet. Now then, I don't know how that makes you feel. Does that make you feel worried, or does that make you feel hopeful? It's funny, isn't it? Yeah, exactly, mull that one over. Maybe it will be, who knows? But let's find out from our panel what ideas and projects are exciting them most, and where do they think the biggest obstacles are to more collaboration and innovation. So please, can I welcome on the stage Inga Hibrechts, who is the Global Senior Vice President Sustainability for the Radisson Hotel Group. Inga, please come on stage. Take that chair. How are you doing? You all right? Take that chair. Next, we have Lucas Bobes, Sustainability and ESG Officer for Amadeus. Hi, Lucas. Can I also welcome on stage a good friend of mine, Ibrahim Oster, who is Senior Advisor, Economic Growth and Trade for Chemonix International. Where are you, Ibrahim? There you are. Well done. That was very good. Nicholas Brumelo, please come on stage, co-founder and CEO of Digitrips. Hello, Nicholas. How you doing, man? Good to see you. And can I please welcome Ada Zhu from the Alibaba Group, who is Regional Director EMEA, and in particular looks after the travel operation, Figgy. Hello, how'd you do? Nice to meet you. Please take a seat. So, let's find out then from our panel what ideas and projects are exciting them most and where they think the biggest opportunities for innovation and collaboration are. So, Inga, Radisson, you've taken on the sustainability challenge with gusto. Tell me about the initiatives that you're taking.
Yes, thank you, Rajan. So Radisson is one of the largest international hotel companies. So we are in 90 countries, 1,250 hotels, ranging from hotels that are 50 rooms to hotels that are more than 1,000 rooms. So quite a varied spectrum. I would say we've been talking a lot about climate and net zero. We are committed to become net zero by 2050. That's a long way away. It means halving emissions by 2030. That's a lot shorter. So we're doing a lot of things to make that happen. We are focusing on having green buildings, green energy, and green operations, with a lot of new ways of working there, with a lot of new partnerships emerging, and a lot of focus on technology, both on the buildings as well as in the renewables. And then I would say what we're also doing is engaging. We are the drivers of responsible and seamless tourism and travel. We want to engage the customers. You know, Benjamin Franklin once said, tell me and I will forget. Teach me and I may remember, but involve me and I will learn. So the key thing in this whole story, because net zero is very technical, it's a technical thing. If I say to customers we're going to net zero, we're talking to our B2B customers like that, but certainly not to our B2C customers. So the point is, let's involve them. Let's involve them and make them feel good about their green choices. Let's make the green choices easy and accessible. And we are doing that all the way from the starting level to the more advanced level, even with the aim to going to net zero and net positive. And that starting level is called Hotel Sustainability Basics. It's a global standard for hotel entry level, basic, it says what it is, right? Basic sustainability, focusing on efficiency, planet, and people, so all the aspects of sustainability, and verified. So it can be trusted by the consumer. It's like a new language, it's like a new currency, if you wish. We make it easy for the travelers to recognize what a real sustainable hotel is. And this is not a Radisson thing, by the way, it's an industry thing.
We're going to talk about metrics and measurements and common standardized gauges shortly. I want to ask you something else. Just in terms of innovation, you've got a solar-powered hotel coming up, is that right?
Yes, that's right. So today we are focusing very much on powering our hotels more with renewable energy. Of course, because it's good for the carbon footprint, but it's also good for the cost base of the hotel. So everywhere where we have space, we are inciting our hotels to install solar, it's mostly solar, on site. And we have a hotel coming up in the Canary Islands, which will run 100% of its daytime electricity use, and I can tell you in a hotel that's quite a lot, on solar. So 100% of that hotel during the day will be powered by solar, and it's a resort, so typically the consumption of a resort is higher than of a city hotel. So we have these kind of examples. We also have the largest solar installation in a resort in the Pacific. It's in Fiji on our Radisson Blu resort. So we are doing these things, but we need more and we need to accelerate them.
And obviously not everywhere can be solar powered.
No. If you look at a typical roof space of a city hotel like the Radisson Collection we have here, that roof is already crowded with air conditioning units, air handling units, etc. So there's very little space there, but there are mechanisms now in markets, specifically in Europe, to work on collective power purchasing agreement, to involve third parties, to develop renewables for you, and you can buy that energy for a long time, in a long contract. So that's called PPA or VPPA, and we are looking into that, and we're starting to do them as well.
Okay. We're going to come back to some of the things you mentioned before. Lucas, tell me about Amadeus. You're a B2B company, but you're basically a huge distribution business, and hundreds of millions of people, passengers, are booking basically through your technology. So what are your innovations that are helping sustainability?
That's definitely a very important consideration when analyzing what is the contribution that we can make to sustainability. One of the first assessment that we made when we were producing our environmental strategy was to say, okay, what it is that we can contribute. We need to acknowledge that there is little that we can achieve in isolation. So we need to have a global consideration. We need to address first our direct impact. In our particular case, that is mainly driven by energy consumption related to data processing. In that respect, we are implementing energy efficient measures. We are also using market-based mechanisms to use renewable energy in our data center, and we are also migrating to the cloud. But even if, and I think this is very important to understand, if we want to be serious about sustainability, even if we achieve the best performing data centers in the world on our own, that doesn't solve, unfortunately, any sustainability problem. We need to go beyond. And that is going first to our customers. We work, as you said, a principal component of our business is distribution and also IT solutions. And we need to work particularly with our travel providers. We are particularly on aviation, but also in the hospitality. helping them to become also more sustainable. We work providing information to the 4 million travelers that process their reservations using Amadeus platform indirectly. And we also work with travel providers providing IT solutions. And the third important component of our strategy, and also critical one, is to collaborate with industry stakeholders, industry associations, governments, universities, and even with our competitors. Because again, sustainability is a challenge that unless we realize we have to work together all in the industry, we will not achieve the results that we need.
You are part of this group called Travelist. Tell me about that. What is Travelist?
Well, Travelist has, I think, a very crucial objective of using a common sustainability framework in order to bring to the travelers clear and transparent information to travelers so they can make informed choices. That is what was very appealing to us when we started to have conversations with travelers, because I think that is very needed. Unfortunately, depending on who you ask and the perspective that you take and the region of the world where you are and the sector of economy where you are, if you ask what is sustainability, you will get very different answers. So one of the objectives of Travelist is bring all these together so that they can be combined and used for information for travelers. So that's a very, very important point. The other very important point about Travelist is, I think, that they have done what I believe, arguably, is unique, which is bringing together a critical mass of travel industry players together with this purpose, including competitors. So we are working there with competitors, Travelport, for example, and also with other partners in the sector like Booking.com, Expedia, Skyscanner.
So every single big company in the world is part of Travelist?
Every single?
Every single big company in your sector is part of Travelist?
Well, we wish yet, because that's the objective.
That's the objective?
And for that, Travelist is building additional partnerships and is making a big effort to discuss with other entities that are looking for the same solutions in order to reach a common agreement. It is not the point to make Travelist the solution for everyone. I mean, the only solution, let's say. It is a question of discussing and coming to agreements rather than imposing or trying to defend that this Travelist solution is the best.
But it's
and
having...
I don't want to speak in their behalf because we are just part of it. But I think that's a very important component of their value proposition, let's say.
Well, surely the whole point is to make it easier for the customer, ultimately, to understand what you're all doing and compare you to each other for your ability to push for sustainability. Is that right? Yeah, so you're looking... Go on.
Exactly. I mean, the idea is to, in the distribution business that you mentioned, we process a day like today, more than 1 million travelers are going to process their travel reservation using a platform of Amadeus. We fundamentally, in this process that takes minutes, give them information about schedules, very uncontroversial piece of information. Same thing with availability and fares. But then we want to include in that information that is used by the traveler to make a choice, sustainability. And that is where it is more complicated. So we want to bring that, provide information about what is the impact of their trip, what are the most sustainable choices available for them, and also eventually to facilitate mitigation options for them. So that's the point.
Again, there's a lot of stuff we're going to come back to in the general discussion in a second. Ibrahim, now you are very much working in the sphere, which is that, I think, an equally important but broader sense of sustainability, which is involving local communities, which is building capacity, which is going into new areas where tourism is not so much developed, but also making it sustainable in every sense. But tell me about the work of Chemonics.
Hello. Great. Thank you for your question. I like the title of the session, where you look at a whole industry approach to sustainability. And I would like to say that we work at perhaps 3 levels: at the national level, at the industry level, and at the community level. So first of all, you may have never heard of Chemonics, and I bet by the time you leave this room, you will forget the name, and you don't need to know the name of the company.
Put the mic a bit closer.
Because we implement programs for the U.S. Agency for International Development. So USAID provides the funding. We're essentially white labeled. We implement on behalf of USAID. So whatever we do,
You might need to explain what USAID is to people here.
So USAID is the United States Agency for International Development, and Carl Worster is with us here today in the room, I think, somewhere. Here he is. So Carl, for example, represents or is an official of the U.S. Agency for International Development in the country of Bosnia and Herzegovina. He's the head of the economic office. But USAID exists in a number of countries. Chemonics implements programs on behalf of USAID in 100 countries. We have 6,005 people. The 5 are important, just like the 6. And we're implementing activities in sustainable cities and climate change and agriculture and economic growth and environment. And tourism happens to fit essentially in all of them. So when I go back to speak about sustainability, I would say the first layer is working with governments to make sure that national policy incorporates sustainability right from the top. And a recent example, for example, that we helped the country of Bosnia and Herzegovina develop and adopt a new tourism strategy. The strategy begins with the following phrase. It's conservation-led, people-centric development. Then we speak about environment. We need to have the people as the center of everything we do. Then from there you go back and say, for the lady who is living in that village, what does it take for us to improve her life and the life of her family and their livelihoods? So we begin with that, as well as then the adoption of destination-level sustainability, something that's happening right now in the work we're doing in the country of Moldova. So we partnered with the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, and we're working with the Ministry of Culture in Moldova to adopt these practices and then disseminate them in partnership with the Inbound Operators Association. That's kind of the Inbound Tourism Association. That's the key industry association there. And the same thing in other destinations where we have that model where you begin conservation-led. You begin with conservation. And everything else, you say, what is allowable to do on a nature site or in a destination? Then from there you depart. But second is you're working with industry itself. Again, if I use Bosnia as an example because we have an active program there right now, my colleague Azra, who's in the back, here she is, part of her team is working with hotels, bringing them environmental management companies to help them do audits of their operation and show them how they can make better profit as well as attract more discerning clients, but converting to more sustainable practices using renewable energy, for example, and that sort of thing. But because
Ibrahim, sorry to interrupt. In a way, with countries that are newer, in a sense, to tourism, is it easier to bring in sustainable ideas and policies because they're virgin territory, if you like, almost?
Yeah, well, it's not easy, but I think if you use collaboration, as you have in the session title, and the other one, partnership, there's a lot you can achieve. Who would have thought that we would be able to go to the governments, I would say, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, because it's set up in a very interesting way, and agree with the governments there on a single adaptive management plan for nature areas. And then the plan emerged with our blueprint for current protected areas as well as new ones, because they're expanding in new areas, how to manage visitation sustainably, and a whole community engagement plan, because you do need to engage the gateway communities in being conservators of nature areas of the park, as well as, of course, benefiting from it. Now, continuing on the issue of the industry level, one of the areas, I've been speaking about that for the last 2 editions of World for Travel, that I was assigned to speak about financing of the tourism sector. We're working on finance for the tourism sector. I remember signing MOUs with about 12 financial institutions. 4 of them were leasing companies. But what is interesting is we need to understand not just the gaps of the finance and how do we convince banks to work with the tourism enterprises and how to equip the tourism enterprises with capacities to present bankable applications. But we need to understand a bit more the psychology as well as the policies of the corporation, the banks themselves. What sort of policies they have for their growth. And it turns out more and more banks are prioritizing ESG as part of the criteria to select companies to make a loan to. So we need to understand the banking sector and where the trends in the banking sector is going, and how can we then go back to our partners, the beneficiaries we work with, and advise them that you need to convert to more sustainable practices, not just because it's good business, because it makes you look good, because you're more a responsible corporate citizen. It's an imperative. You're not going to get a loan if you're not compliant with these things. And finally, I would go to the third level, working on the community, where we work to preserve sustainable livelihoods and ensure that you give value to these livelihoods. Rural communities, for example, working with beekeepers as an example, working with the ladies in the farm that make cheese. And as an example, we worked with a number of local institutions, just the cooperatives. We put together 16 local farms, and I'm talking about tiny ones, family-owned, and beekeepers, to launch the cheese and honey trade. So you go to visit the beekeeper, and you visit the lady who's making the cheese and so forth. But this is sustainable production, sustainable rural production, and you maintain people where they are. You stem the migration of rural to urban migration. We bring more money into the place, and then all of these are sustainable, also consumption.
Thank you. We're going to come back to you again as well. By the way, Radisson, are they in Bosnia and Herzegovina?
Not yet, but of course we'd like to partner to do some hotels. We are in other destinations like Moldova, we are in Serbia, we are in some African destinations where we are the first and only international hotel that is there, and some of these destinations are very high threat, which is important to come in, because then through the training you provide, it's the same thing. You provide training to the people you employ, and that has a multiplicator effect on the local community.
Okay, that's collaboration. That's collaboration we're talking about.
Yeah, you're a good man, because you brought up a subject that is very important to us, because in the next phase, we would like to see more brands come into Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we would like to play a role in facilitating bringing these brands, soft brands, hard brands, and so forth. So we'd love to have a discussion.
Count on us.
That's what this conference is about. Nicholas, back to digital kind of world, technology world. Explain what DigiTrips is, please, for us.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Well, DigiTrips powers travel brands, so tour operators and travel agents, and beyond travel brands, airports, e-commerce companies who want to sell travel, employee benefit programs, you name it. So we power anyone who wants to sell travel in all the verticals, flights, accommodation, packages, car rentals, you name it. That's what we do.
And in terms of your challenge to increase awareness of sustainability to end users, to travelers, if you're primarily a B2B company, how can you get that message across to the actual end consumer?
Well, we actually also serve the final consumer when we act as a white label, for example, for airports. Take the Paris airport site. It's our brand that's customer facing. So we actually also interact with the customer, and we understand the issues with the customer. So there's sort of two sides of the spectrum. There's the producers on the one side, airlines, cruise companies, hotels, who actually are acting, I believe strongly. We believe strongly in adopting biofuels. We've talked about SVAF. It's expensive. It's not readily available all across the globe. But the other side of the spectrum is the consumer. He is still, even though he says he's aware or conscious,
or she,
or she,
or
they have still to date to accept, to adopt new practices, and that we believe is raising awareness across the CO2 footprint that they have. We act in the leisure travel, because he is still today primarily price sensitive and price drives decision. And so it's how do we raise in this phase when the producer working hard on reaching zero emissions new aircrafts. Airbus, Boeing, they're all working on these, and the airlines, when the time comes, will order these planes. But that's in too long a time. We have to start acting now, and our role as intermediary is convince the end consumer that he has a role to play right now and not tomorrow.
So you provide data for everybody that tells them about how sustainable trips are.
Exactly. So our role, we don't produce, we promote, we actually show results of what the end consumer wants. And so we've integrated through data and partnering with Atmos, which is a German non-profit organization. It is stamped by the environmental agency of the German government. A calculator that embeds what we believe and what they believe, and I guess it's been documented, that it integrates the most complete data set that's available to have the best CO2 emission calculation of your trip. The problem is today that there are so many calculators around there, and not two of them compare the same things. This is absurd. I guess policy should have normalized this. So we source data, we normalize it, we standardize it, and then we show it to the end consumer in the simple way. They can obviously access the full data set that's behind this calculator if they want to. So it's easily understandable and readable by the end consumer. It has to be easy, otherwise you lose the customer. And that's why we believe today it is too complex with the CO2 calculation calculators, and they show very different data. For example, the one that we use shows a much higher impact than those of the airlines that we actually show, those of the airlines. So we've had some airlines saying, your calculator shows a much higher emission result than ours.
Yeah.
Of course, because the one that we've chosen includes contrails, for example, and many of them, they don't integrate these because they're long-term, high-altitude things that's not understandable by the end consumer. But if it's not integrated, the results are biased. And
Okay.
so we sort of simplify, and we're still in this phase today as a paradox, because everyone talks about climate issues, but the end consumer, yeah, my role is this, and then I have so much of a budget to go there, and so I will only, I will not choose these. But through the calculator that we have, for probably the same price, you could have 2 or 3 choices, and we show which one of these at the same price has the less CO2 impact. At least drive and start to embed new customer changes.
Okay, again, we're going to come back, because I know, Lucas, you have some ideas about issues, if you like, with atmosphere, and it's not perfect in every way, so we will talk about that, because we're always coming back to the same thing, metrics, common metrics. Can we agree on the same measurements for everybody to make life simple for the consumer? We'll come back to that. Ada, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good,
Hi,
good.
everyone.
Now, you are responsible for the development of the Fliggy platform, which is part of the Alibaba Group, which is basically to bring the world to the Chinese market. And you are using technological platforms that are actually really interesting, like virtual stuff. Just explain to us and to the audience what you're about.
Sure, sure. So, just a few words about Fliggy. Fliggy is the travel platform of Alibaba Group. We are like a 360 degrees platform. The Chinese consumers, so we're focusing on B2C, Chinese consumer traveling in China or traveling outside China. So basically our consumer are all Chinese people living in China, but also the overseas people, overseas Chinese living everywhere in the world. So this is the first thing. Second thing, we are like, as I said, 360 degrees platform. That means the consumer, our mission is to bring everything that the Chinese traveler needs during his trip. Can be airplane tickets, can be train tickets, hotels, activities, tours, museum tickets, but also visa services, because maybe, certainly you know, all Chinese people with a Chinese passport, we need to request a visa everywhere we're traveling. So visa services and also communication, Wi-Fi box, because as you know, Chinese consumer are with a mobile all the time. They have all the app necessary for their survive everywhere in the world. So they need a Wi-Fi connection everywhere. So this is Fliggy. So, well, we are here to help Chinese consumer to travel around the world. This is my job because I'm looking after EMEA region, and Europe is a very important destination for Fliggy consumers. And to reply to your question about the technology,
Yeah.
as you know, the pandemic was very long period in China. We just left the border since March this year. So during 3 years, nearly 3 years and a half, as in my role, not to get people forget about destinations such Europe. So what can I do when you don't have physically the way to bring people to our destination? So we are just using technology, existing technology like live streaming, which is very used in China for selling product, selling product, cosmetics, can be others. And we just turn it and use it in the travel industry. And we partnered on the culture topic with art, museums, worldwide famous museum, Musée du Louvre, Château de Versailles, British Museum, Prado, Colosseo. And we just bring these destinations to Chinese consumer. So this is a way that we are doing at the international stage. So we keep pushing, topics like culture, like art, to the eyes of Chinese consumer to make them, record that we have great things in Europe, and at the national stage in China. We developed, rural tourism, like the villages, So one example in Inner Mongolia, which is a not very famous village, Arbingshan at all. So we help them to increase their brand awareness and to build all visit itinerary, and to bring citizens, people from cities to this village, and we use live streaming, to sell the local rural production to the people everywhere, and then so we increase their their economic environment by bringing tourists in villages, and but also to helping them to sell their production in China mainland everywhere.
Okay. 2 questions. The first question is, when do you think will the Chinese travel market come to Europe and the rest of the world? Because at the moment, they're still sticking around Asia, right?
Well, good news. Good news. Starting from Golden Week. So Golden Week is October 1st. So the Golden Week is a very important period for Chinese consumer for traveling around the world. So we start to see, again, Chinese tourists coming back in Europe. So I just want to precise that Fliggy, we are focusing on FIT travelers, individual travelers. We are not doing groups. So they are traveling by themselves. And before that, in March, we had some visa issues. We have, of course, plane issues. Then we had visa issues, and now it seems that every embassy has the staff coming back again in China. So visa issues on the way to be solved, and we are starting to see some figures coming back in Europe.
The second thing is, I remember the first time we had the big Chinese wave of tourism coming into early 2000s. Excuse me, early 2000s, yeah? And then it was all about Europe being China ready. That was the phrase being used, yeah? So Chinese speakers, knowing about the Chinese diet. But also then it was very much more group travel oriented. Are we talking about a different kind of Chinese traveler today?
It's a very interesting question because Chinese ready or China ready is still a question today, because even if they are FIT travelers, they need some services, specific services, and even in hotels, some specific needs in the hotels, like boiler, water boiler, like sleepers, this kind of little things They're very important. If you are traveling with group or individually in these hotels, they need this kind of things. But also, yes, Chinese speakers. So even if they are traveling and they want to visit a place, a museum, or attend a daily tour, or trying a new experience, wine tasting experience, well, of course, they can book an English session if they want. They are here to learn. They can book an English session. But naturally, they prefer to have a Chinese speaker with them. So the language can be a very important barrier in the Chinese ready strategy of each company, and can be a challenge for a lot of my local partners, French, Spanish, Italian partners, because often they don't have Chinese speakers in their staff, even to communicate, with our team, Fliggy, and to hire people and to serve, the travelers. And it's another question. And yes, so you still need to have some key element to be Chinese ready.
And technology, language translation technology is still not good enough.
Well, of course, we have AI. We have a lot of AI solutions, but this is in our platform. So that means if you have customer service, a client A asking you question about your experience in your vineyard or somewhere, well, you can still use AI. You can reply in Chinese and translate automatically in English, in French, and Spanish. So this is okay. This is not perfect, but yeah, we can deal with that. But it's really different when you are. Let's take the example of visiting a vineyard or having a wine tasting in your vineyard. So when you got there, well, you want to feel the passion, of a winemaker, explain you about the wine and having this wine tasting. So you can't use AI, it's not the same. You need to have a real person explain their job, their expertise. So AI technology is doing great jobs, but don't do all the job.
Okay. Inga, you knew I was going to ask you this question. Do you have Chinese speakers, Mandarin and Cantonese speakers in your hotels?
I was actually burning to say this, but I think I fully agree with what Ada is saying. So since a few years already, we are focusing on welcoming the Chinese travelers in our hotel, and we do that in two ways, because it's what you say, right? People want to feel safe and welcome when they come. So we have a program called Wanjin, or I probably pronounce it Welcome China, Wanjin. So for our hotels to make sure that they understand that they have these things like water cookers in the room, that they have Chinese speakers, all of that. And we even have co-branded hotels. We're going to have 10 by the end of this year with our shareholder, which is Jinjiang International. So we're part of the second largest hotel group in the world. So these are all steps that we are doing to train our teams to make this important group of visitors welcome in our hotels.
And you are a Chinese-owned group.
Yes, so we are part of Jinjiang International, the second largest hotel company in the world.
So you can't even expect they would...
Yes, we get a lot of expertise, of course, from our Chinese colleagues.
Yeah. I want to just talk about multimodal options. So what technology can do, perhaps that's true of you as well, Nicholas, in giving consumers the option of traveling the greenest way using a combination of different forms of transport. That's what you can advise now? That's what you can... No, Lucas, I'm talking to you. That's what your group can suggest?
Yeah, well, I think one positive thing about the change of focus that we have seen after the pandemic on sustainability is that some of the topics that were dormant, I would say, arguably, like multimodality, have suddenly become top of the agenda. And for example, as you know now, the EU Commission is working on a piece of legislation to facilitate multimodal travel. We have identified that, well, first of all, the technology is already available to provide platforms that facilitate a more seamless travel, including multimodal, so that in one single platform you can make booking in different means of transportation, in accommodation, even in ground transportation in cities, and then ticket, those bookings, make payments, make changes when then there's a disruption at the beginning of the trip so that you can adjust the rest. And all of this is now technically possible. It's just a question of bringing into practice and having the proper platforms together so that we can share information.
Can you give me an illustration, an example?
We did some years ago a project called Always Traveling, in which we were proving, I don't remember exactly what was the itinerary, it was somewhere between, I think it was Madrid to Amsterdam, to the outskirts of Amsterdam, proving that the technology is already available to include air, rail, hotel accommodation, and ground transportation in one single platform. The difficulty, or one of them, is that we all need to share a lot of data in one single platform so that you can make use of it. So this is all. So we have also worked with Kearney, producing a report that proves that multimodal solutions help address the problem of overcrowded destinations and also reduce significantly the impact per passenger trip.
Yeah. So, for example, okay, I want to go from London, or let's say Paris. I want to go from Paris to, let's say, I want to go to Paris to Bosnia and Herzegovina. Okay. Now then, will the technology provide me with options which are the most sustainable way to do that? Which involve a combination of different transport with one single reservation. Is that possible?
Technically, it is possible. We have to advance more than anything, in my view, is again to bring together all the travel providers that can be involved in providing that information, and also, as we discussed before, to clarify how are we going to address the issue of sustainability. And I would like to liaise, if you allow me, with the comment on atmosphere. I don't disagree with anything that Nicolas has said.
Yeah.
but there are many reasons why the evaluation of sustainability differs. I would just like to mention one for the sake of time. Imagine you're making this trip and you make a booking 3 months in advance, which is very much probably the case. You don't even know as an airline what equipment are you going to fly. If you make the booking 1 day before, probably the information you have available is significantly different. So that's, I mean, one element why this is quite difficult to estimate the impact. No? But so in summary, we need to bring together all the information, we speaking the same language technically, and then we need to agree on how we evaluate sustainability.
Yeah. So we return to this topic. So Nicolas, atmosphere, which you rely on totally, is not, Lucas says, 100%.
Well, there is no one solution or calculate today that gives you or integrates, because it is forward-looking based on past data. The load factors, it's based on the yield of the airlines. So too many things are unknown. And so some decide not to take them into account because you cannot actually calculate them precisely. So yeah, parts of it is forecasting, so it will never be exactly precise, but that's not an excuse to just not do anything about it and not being as conservative as one should be today, considering the reality of the climate. I mean, it's just have to be realistic. So we have chosen, for example, just to take a calculator that's, even though it is a bit frightening, but it's the reality. It's not hide the reality because it's based on just forecasting.
Yeah, yeah. How are we going to do this, though? How are we ever going to get to the point where we actually are all reading the same page, if you like, when it comes to our sustainable options? When are we going to get to a point where, I know it's difficult because there are different aspects, different infrastructure, all that sort of stuff. It does affect things. But where I can say, I want simple metrics that show me that this option is better than that option, or I can do a combination of options which at least make me more sustainable. Because obviously convenience and price will come into this. How can we get there?
I think one comment on that, learning from the discussion we are having in this very panel, we are talking about very different initiatives, all of us. So there is no one single solution that will address everything, and we will have to live in a situation in which there will be some frustration. So we need to walk little by little and reinforce the area of cooperation. I mean, we are in discussions with different players, and we need to progress in this direction. So it is very important to make sure we are walking in the right direction. The perfect world is difficult to achieve, no? So, and by the way, we will never achieve sustainability. I mean, sustainability is a way rather than a destination.
Sure. Ibrahim.
Yeah, we need to move beyond the war of the labels. You know, which sustainability label is better and which one is more accurate. I mean, if you come close, that's fine. At the end of the day, are we making strides toward a more sustainable industry? And that is what is important, regardless of the label. We heard about Hotel Basics. I love it. And I promised Inga to assign it as a class project because I happen to teach at George Washington University right now, and I need to send the class project today. And so I'm incorporating that, and I told her in it. But the important part is, can we move the industry forward? I know we're talking about emissions in aviation and transport and that sort of thing, but of course, as we know, sustainability is beyond that. I'll give you one concrete example we're doing right now in Jordan. In one of the projects we're implementing, again, for USAID, is called Jordan Recycling. And guess what that project is about? So we're working with major producers of waste, and that happens to be the tourism sector among them, especially in hotels, of course. And we will go to them and we show them that if you recycle, you can create livelihoods for those that do work in recycling. You may earn a bit of money to offset some of your costs, and you're also doing good, so it allows you to go brag to your consumer. So sustainability earns you a more discerning traveler, and at the same time, it can save money. So when I spoke about the Bosnia example, where we're going to companies and say, you need to convert your systems, the issue here is green finance. It's not just green meaning, well, you need to be compliant already to ESG principles, but if you do apply, you become more green and you save money. At the end of the day, you may be driven by an emotional kind of love for sustainability, but if you're driven by the bottom line, we need to speak that language. We need to show you that you're going to be more profitable by operating in a more sustainable manner.
Yeah.
So.
Inga, do you want to say something? Yeah.
Yes, if I may, I think absolutely we need to get through the acronym soup and the framework fatigue that we all have. But I'm optimistic, and I think you see fantastic levels of cooperation. I mean, Lucas was speaking about Travelist. This is an amazing platform with an amazing initiative. On the hotel industry side, we have an organization like the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance that represents over 50% of the global hotel industry, 50%. So that is an amazing group, and we come together on, for example, employability initiatives in Lebanon, in Kenya, in India, in Mexico. We work together, and we also work together on things like hotel sustainability basics and the next steps to get to net positive. So I'm very hopeful because I think these two organizations, the big group that Travelist represents, which is an amazing reach to the customers, and us with the hotel brands, we actually can reach some kind of agreement in the future to say, okay, this is speaking with one voice, because we represent 10% of global GDP, tourism and travel. That's an enormous responsibility. So we need to take that responsibility and get over our little differences that we may have from time to time, because perfection is the enemy of good. So let's aim for good, and let's get going on these important coalitions, I think, working together.
So what you're saying is, so the SHA, Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, and Travelist are going to work together in some way?
They are talking, so.
They're talking. And we're talking with the ultimate aim of what?
Well, I think both of us have kind of a framework. I mean, Travelist has defined a language for what is sustainable hotels, and Lucas can explain that better. And so, of course, the hotel industry has done that too. So I think knowing the inside out of both systems, it's very feasible to bring them together and to say we speak in one language. So we hope that that can happen, not just on an intention, we have good intentions, but also on a practical way.
Okay. Ada, Chinese market. How interested is the individual Chinese traveler in sustainable destinations?
Well, I think the awareness is getting more and more important in China because the young generation is aware of the climate change, protection, environment protection. Yes, so it's more and more a topic on the country now. Yes.
And the Chinese government actually has now adopted quite a lot of invested quite a lot in renewable energy now. It's taken on the mantle, hasn't it?
Yes, yes, because we are, China is aware that we need to move, to have progress. So in every industry, we are trying to make, improvement. And from Fliggy's side, during the pandemic, we developed a lot of, nature, vacations by camping car. I mean, Chinese people traveling in camping car never seen before. So we are pushing new idea also to trying to find new way to make them accept. But still a pattern to develop. Yeah. Yes.
We're running out of time, but I want to ask you all actually one question, which is in terms of innovation. And innovation can mean many things. It can be in collaboration, it can be in technology, it can be wherever. What do you think would be the greatest breakthrough? It's a big question. If you could think of one thing that would make our journey towards greater sustainability much, much quicker, what would that be? What would you like to see happen? Lucas.
If I may, I think at the beginning you said that in the current projections there are assumptions made about new technologies that are going to come, and we don't know what they are.
Exactly, yep.
And that will form a significant part of the solution. And that is very disturbing, but I think we have very encouraging pieces of information that will tend to think that that assumption is right. We have, at the moment, more engineers than ever in history, anywhere in the world. We have more funds dedicated to research than any time in history, and we have communication among these people that create economies of scale when it comes to bringing up solutions, no? And this has already, I think, reflected on some of the solutions that we are seeing. On our side, in Amadeus, we focus on the specific things that are related to where we can contribute. But there are other things that we see coming. Like, for example, thinking about flights not powered by fossil fuel was something that was out of completely any thought only a few years ago. And now, okay, there are still significant difficulties, but we are seeing some progress.
We're about to talk about this in the next panel, actually. But yeah, continue. Yeah.
But I think it is very reasonable to expect that we will find solutions that we cannot even think of, and we need to create the right setup and framework to make these solutions flourish. And in that sense, for us, almost half of our workforce are engineers that we need to attract, and we need to convince them that they can work in Amadeus in these kind of solutions that are going to make the world a better place.
Okay. I've just been told we have to move on to be okay. I'm sorry, because of time. Think about this, and all of you think about this. What is the greatest innovation that you can think of that will accelerate our progress towards the targets that we want? Because what is interesting is what is increasingly possible with AI and everything else is what is imaginable as actually feasible, potentially, in the future, which is grounds for optimism, I would suggest, in a situation where we're not feeling particularly optimistic at the moment. But I think that's good. We have hope. Can I thank the panel for their nuggets of hope as well? Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.